Hello, my name is Kathy, and today I'll be talking about how to motivate yourself and other tips for learning the harp. But before I do, I wanted to tell you that I have a great many videos now on many different topics, and so I've decided to make several different video playlists so that it's easy to find the videos of greatest interest. So please check out my playlist page. First off, I just wanted to say that I'm not being paid by Sylvia Woods to promote her music. I'm using her material because it is simply the best material out there for beginning adult harp students, and I'll explain why. Firstly, Sylvia Woods' music books that have arrangements for beginner and advanced harpers are wonderful in that they are almost all a single page of music for the beginning student, and they are a consistent arrangement. Now, what I mean by this is that the whole piece of music is roughly the same degree of difficulty. This is something that can be difficult to achieve when you're arranging music. It is very easy to arrange a piece of music and have several sections in it that are incredibly difficult, and yet the rest of the piece is easy to play. Sylvia Woods' arrangements are consistently the same degree of difficulty all the way through the music. As an example, I love to play the composer George Gershwin's music, and I play a lot of it on harp. I bought a piece of sheet music of Gershwin's that was arranged inconsistently by somebody else. What I mean by that is that the bulk of the piece of music is quite easy to play, except for two small spots that there are all of a sudden large chords and three sharping lever changes that have to be executed at lightning speed. These two tiny little sections make this overall simple piece of music killer to play. You never find this happening with Sylvia Woods' arrangements. You can be confident that if it's arranged by Sylvia Woods, that you will be able to play it. And this is why I wanted to use her music to teach this course. Secondly, she has taken the time and effort to put the fingering into the pieces of music, which is something that most other arrangers have not done. For a beginning harp student, this is a critical component of music. And there are other pluses to her books of music. One that I personally appreciate is that they are coil bound. This means that your music will stay flat. This is a wonderful little touch. And she has included the words for most of the songs in her books, so that anyone out there who can sing can do so without having to purchase yet another book for the words. And lastly, I like the artwork in the books. I know this might sound trite, but I really enjoy looking at the pictures while I play. It kind of puts me into the headspace of the piece of music I'm playing. And I like this. These are the reasons I use her music, plus the fact that there is no other beginning book for harp that moves you through all the basic components of learning the harp faster than her first book, Teach Yourself to Play the Folk Harp. I wanted my students to progress as quickly as it was humanly possible, and this book is definitely the trick. When I conceived of doing a course that taught beginner adults, I wanted to make sure that every bit of music the adult student put their time and energy into learning was going to be something that they could use for their entire harping life. What I mean by this is that the Scottish and Irish music that is used so extensively in the beginning part of this teaching course will never go out of fashion. You will always be able to use this music when performing. Every piece you learn is usable forever. Another thing I wanted to do is to give you a brief history of the songs, and I do this at the beginning of my teaching videos. I do this so that you can understand what the song is about and what its intentions are. Also, when you perform these pieces, it's nice to be able to give your audience a bit of the history that surrounds that piece of music. Not only does it enrich your own experience of the piece, but the audience becomes more involved when they understand a little bit about that piece of music. Plus, it allows you to extend the length of time that it takes to perform that single page of music from a minute to several minutes. This is an important consideration when you're performing your stuff in public. Now, I'm making playlists of each of the books of music. I do not expect you to play every single one of the pieces, especially the first-year students. For first-year students, you should learn the first 6 pieces in the order presented, meaning Auld Lang Syne first, and so forth. The reason for this is that I've given a great deal of detailed information on musical performance and other musical concepts that are critical for your overall learning experience. Now, after you've completed those first 6 pieces, then you're meant to listen to the rest of the pieces in the book and decide which pieces you like best and practice those pieces. There is no set order here. I have made videos on all of the pieces that you can easily learn. The more difficult pieces in the books I have not included. The net result of this is that you know right from the start which pieces you're going to be able to learn relatively easily, and that you can then choose from that position the pieces that you want to learn. I've also included so many pieces in each of the books because there will be students out there that are capable of learning these pieces very quickly. And I wanted to make sure that you had enough material to see you through. Do not be dismayed if it takes you several weeks to learn a new piece of music. This is perfectly normal. I did not make this clear in the lessons, and I'm sorry about that. And this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this video. For Year 1 students, in the first few lessons, it is taught that you put your fingers directly on the harp strings in the set hand positions, and then you play that segment of music finger by finger. This is done so that you will learn how to place your hands on the harp to play music. But placing your fingers on the strings before you play this segment is only the first part of it. What you're ultimately trying to achieve is to learn to place the first finger of the segment of the harp string on the harp string and have your other fingers hovering just above the other harp strings ready to play the notes in question, but not actually touching them. After you've mastered how to do this, then you graduate to being able to place your fingers hovering just above all of the strings, but not touching them, in the correct hand placements, and then pluck the strings. Bottom line is that you are slowly moving into the position of not placing your fingers on the strings at all unless you're plucking them. This is a slow process, so take your time with it. Remember to start learning your hand positions by placing all of your fingers on the strings in the correct hand position. Then graduate yourself to placing just the first finger of that hand position directly on the strings, while your other fingers hover just above the strings to be played. Then graduate to the position that all of your fingers are hovering just above the strings in the correct hand positions. For Year 1 and 2 students, my ultimate goal with teaching this harp course is for you to develop complete independence. What this means is that I'm trying to teach you in a manner that will teach you how to figure out music all by yourself. One of the most important skills that must be learned in Year 1 harp is how to count and play your music at the same time. I cannot express how important this is for your independence. Put a lot of time and energy into doing this with each lesson, as it's critical to your ultimate independence. This is the reason that I did not include clapping and counting in Lesson 5. It was to foster independence in this area. The best way to do this is to listen to the lesson and then take the book and figure out all by yourself how the counting and clapping fit into the music. It is the act of you figuring this out by yourself that is critical. Also, as an adult student, it's important that you avoid playing along with me. The goal of these lessons is for you to study the material and listen, and then do it on your own. The act of figuring this material out for yourself is a major step in your growing independence. I want to talk now about something that will stop your forward progress in harp, or any other instrument for that matter. And that is the concept of playing by ear, or according to a written melody as is presented in fate books. Nothing will stop your forward progress faster than fooling around with this material. It is a trap that will halt your forward progress faster than anything I could speak of. Don't do it. Fooling around with fake books and chording is fun when you've completed your first 2 years on the harp of serious practice and study. Every single adult student that I have ever come across has regretted fooling around with this material when they were learning music. I kid you not about this. If you're serious about learning harp, leave this alone until you've completed at least 2 years of serious learning on the harp. You will thank yourself for doing this. Now we come to the part about how to motivate yourself. When you first get your harp, you're filled with boundless enthusiasm for learning the harp, and you just can't wait to get started, and this thrill stays with you for a while. Then a kind of disillusionment follows, and suddenly you find yourself deciding to do other things instead of practice the harp. So what happened to that initial enthusiasm? I can guarantee you that every single musician of any instrument has run into this wall where their enthusiasm wans. Nobody escapes it. When you are a kid learning an instrument, you have your parents providing the necessary discipline that keeps you practicing. And you have your teacher in that regular music lesson that you have to prepare for. But for adults, you don't have this. So what do? The first thing to remember is to set aside a regular practice time for yourself. The discipline of that regular practice time will help you more than anything else. Now, it's said that it takes approximately 4 months to establish a new habit pattern. So it will take some discipline to keep yourself moving forward with practicing until that new habit of practicing the harp kicks in. As an example, I'm a morning person. So what I do is get up, make myself a pot of coffee, get washed and dressed, and then I sit at my harp to practice while I drink my morning coffee. This is how I start my days, and it is as much of a habit for me as getting up and brushing my teeth. Get your practice sessions to the point that they are this kind of habit for you, and just keep with it. Another thing to remember is to locate your harp in either the living room or your bedroom or some other room in your space that is part of the main living area. Nothing will stop your forward progress more than putting your harp in a dingy basement and then expecting yourself to practice it in that environment. Your harp needs to be part of your regular living space. It needs to live with you. Your practice space should be warm, well lit, and nice to be in. Also, every time you walk by that harp, it's going to remind you, practice me. Next, when you first start the harp, you will notice that when you are practicing a harp, that your pieces sound pretty decent. You're hitting all the notes correctly, and you get to the position where you are pretty pleased with the way that you sound. Then you get up and go to the kitchen to get another cup of coffee and come back to the harp and continue your practice session, only to discover that you sound like crap. You are missing the strings, and it's just awful until you get warmed up again. And you discover that you can practice really well in the morning, and yet you can't even play a piece of music you just practiced even as much as an hour after you've just finished your practice session. Your family asks you to play a piece of music on the harp, and you find that you can't. Trust me on this. Every musician of any instrument goes through this when they start. Within approximately 6 to 8 months of regular practice, you will find that you'll be able to play a little bit after your practice session and sound reasonable. This capacity to be able to just sit down and play music on your harp will increase with every year until you reach the point where you cannot touch a harp for months and then be able to sit down and play reasonably well with no practice. As an example of this, I have a friend who got a grand piano. Now, I haven't touched a piano in over 10 years. I went to my friend's place and played my piano music like I'd been practicing it all along. You will get to this stage with your harp, I promise you. It will happen for you. The key is to keep practicing until a certain level of expertise has been acquired. I promise this will happen for you if you do. I do recommend that you practice every day for the first 6 months of lessons, though. This is to firmly establish the routine of practicing at a certain time every day and to reach that level of expertise as quickly as possible, where you can just sit and play the harp and play music without stressing that you'll foul it up. Another thing I wanted to mention is how to build up the muscles in your back and arms so that you can play the harp for longer and longer periods of time without discomfort. What you do is push yourself a little more each day. Play until things start to feel uncomfortable and then force yourself to play longer in that discomfort. You'll find that you work through that initial discomfort in a couple of minutes. Then continue on for even longer period of time. At first, it's helpful to get up and walk around for a couple of minutes, swing your arms to stretch a bit and loosen up, and then immediately sit down and continue practicing. You should slowly work yourself up to being able to practice for 2 to 3 hours without any serious discomfort. It will happen for you, I promise. A side note here. I'm an old lady with some back issues, and I find that harp playing works better for me if I use one of those swivel office type chairs with lumbar support. You've seen them. Do not use this type of chair if you can avoid it, as it will limit you if you want to move on to pedal harp. Use a stool or bench with no back support. Do this first if at all possible. But if you're an older person who needs it, give this lumbar support chair a try. But do your best, if you can, to not use that crutch or a chair with a back support. Something else that happens when you're first learning an instrument, not just harp, is that you find yourself looking at the music and then looking at your hands on the harp and then looking at the music again, flashing back and forth in what seems like an attempt to rub your stomach and pat the top of your head at the same time. It's exhausting, and you find that your harp playing just ends up sucking, with all kinds of stops and starts as you're struggling to locate the correct string and attempt to remember where you were in the piece of music as well. What you do for this is to learn to feel where the harp strings are without looking at the harp strings. In other words, you focus on the music. And teach your hands and fingers how to locate the correct strings without looking at them. Learning how to do this is not as difficult as it sounds. The best way to do this is to practice it while you're doing your finger exercises. Focus on the music and keep trying to locate the correct strings without looking at the harp. Keep focusing on the music. It's easier to do this while practicing your finger exercises because they're repetitive, and it's relatively easy to locate the right strings without looking. At first, this will be difficult, but soon you'll find that you only need to glance at the harp strings from time to time to ensure you're plucking the correct string. Try doing this with your pieces of music as well when you can. This skill at being able to locate the strings without looking will help you all the way through your harping and will be invaluable when you move on to more difficult music that have many sharping lever changes. So work on this. It's a highly valuable skill to have. Focus on the music, not your fingers. Now we move on to the subject of how to motivate yourself and keep on practicing the harp. The first tip here is to buy lever harp music. Tons of it, especially the pieces of music that you want to eventually learn. You must have this material on hand, and I'll tell you why. When people first start an instrument, they fork over a lot of money to simply buy the instrument in question, and it kind of freaks a person out a little bit. So they decide that what they will do is start to practice their beginning music book and see if they're going to be interested and keep at it. This is a mistake, a big mistake that could stop your progress. You need to be able to dream and fantasize about yourself playing these pieces of music that you love. In order for you to do this, you need to have the music at your fingertips. Sometimes all that you need to get you past a practicing funk where you don't want to do the harp anymore is to simply look at this wonderful music that inspires you. Maybe you decide to sit down at your harp and attempt to pick out the tune of your favorite piece, maybe a little bit more, and soon your enthusiasm is regained and you start to practice again. I own virtually every piece of music that was ever composed or arranged for lever harp. Sometimes I feel like I want to play popular music. Other times I want to play classical music. Other times Celtic music. I find, and all musicians get like this, that they get tired of practicing the same old thing and want to change. This is what your piles of wonderful music at your fingertips is all about. It will often be just the thing that you need to spark you to begin practicing again. So buy music, and lots of it. If you truly find that you don't want to do harp anymore, then you can always resell it on Amazon. So you're ultimately out nothing. I have given an extensive list of music in my course material for second year harp. All of this music is perfectly playable and will help you get a good start on getting your own piles of music. Also, don't be afraid to purchase music that you simply love that is not on that list. The point here is for you to be inspired. So also buy what appeals to you and have it on hand. Music books never need to be bought a second time. Once you have these jewels, they're yours until you die. So don't be afraid of buying music. It is one of the best things you can do for yourself. Now, if your budget is limited, like mine has always been, then just buy one new piece of music each month, and before you know it, you'll have a wonderful library of music at your fingertips that will last you for the rest of your life. The next and most popular method of motivating yourself as an adult is to book public performances. There's nothing like the fear of making a complete fool of yourself in public to push you into practicing. Another way to motivate yourself is to start right from the beginning to tell everyone in your world that you are learning the harp. There is a really strong tendency in people to keep this type of thing a secret until you feel you're good enough at the harp to play for people. This is a mistake. Let everyone know that you're learning harp. What this does is that everyone in your world will be asking you how your harp playing is going, maybe even asking you to play a tune or two on the harp for them. Everyone will be doing this, and it will force you to practice more, or else risk being thought of as a bragging fool. Muhammad Ali used this method when he first started out as a boxer. He told the world that he was the best there was in the field of boxing, and he knew he had to make good on that boast, or risk being thought of as a fool and never being able to show his face in public again. So tell everyone that you're learning the harp. Get this information out there to help motivate you. The next method is what most musicians use, and this is to book public performances. How this is achieved is that you can pay money to be part of some competition. The money you fork over and the potential of the prize money, if you win, being the goad that prompts you on to practice for that competition. Plus the fact that you will have to perform your music in front of a crowd and the inspiration of not wanting to make a fool of yourself gives you the motivation to practice. I can tell you from experience that this is powerful motivation. When you are first starting out, it's not realistic to use this method in the above way because you just aren't far enough along in your harp studies. So, in this case, what you do is to make arrangements to perform in nursing homes and hospitals for patients. Harp is a wonderfully healing instrument to play in such settings, especially if you have tuned your harp to 432 Hertz. You're not only motivating yourself, but you are performing a wonderful service for people that would truly enjoy and benefit from your playing. If you're a rank beginner or super afraid to perform in public, I would suggest that you start with coma patients or advanced Alzheimer's patients. It kind of takes the edge off that fear of playing in public. Once these public playing engagements, book these public playing engagements as much as you need to. If you need to be motivated by once a month or once every couple of months, fine. If you need weekly motivation, then book these engagements weekly. There is always someone to play for. If you're truly beside yourself with fear over doing this, then you can arrange a set time once a week where you play your harp formally for your family and friends, maybe a Saturday or Sunday performance. You can also book performances for your local religious institutions or at pagan festivals or anything you can think of, Renaissance fairs. People are usually thrilled to have a live performer, so let your imagination roam to think of other public performance venues for yourself. This forcing yourself to perform in public someplace at a set time is a very powerful motivator, and it does work. But what about making yourself sound as good as you can at these events? You will find that when you perform in public that you will be nervous and scared at first. Stage fright is a very real thing. What ends up happening when you're nervous is that you will have a strong tendency to play your material very fast, faster than you can handle, and then you end up making all kinds of mistakes and you embarrass yourself. How you handle this is to start with your simplest material and then force yourself to play it a little slower than you normally would. You then repeat this easy material a couple of times. The sound of the harp is beautiful to all who listen, and if it is family and friends, they're very forgiving. After you've played your easiest stuff very slowly twice, then move on to your other material, forcing yourself to play the pieces slowly. If you're a rank beginner, play all of your material twice. It also helps if your audience is not directly in front of you. If you can place your harp so that your audience is looking at your side and you are not facing them directly to begin with, this will help you a lot. It is very common when playing in public to hit wrong notes. Don't worry about this so much. Most people won't even notice it. The key thing to remember is to keep the melody and the beat going until you can get your left hand together again, because it is usually the left hand accompaniment that falls up in these situations. As long as you don't stop the song and the beat goes on, most people will not notice if you make a mistake or two. So don't fret over this kind of thing. The nice thing about Sylvia Woods' beginner music is that the pieces are only a page long. This isn't all that long, and if you foul up, you can wing it to get to the end of the piece pretty quickly. If your foul up is really intense, then remember the key of music that you're playing. Is it G major, C major, or whatever? And keep your melody going and finish with the C or G or whatever in the left hand as appropriate. When you finish the piece, and remember to slow down near the end of the piece of music so that the listener can hear that the song is about to end. Bottom line is don't freak out about note mistakes. You notice them far more than your audience ever will. Also, remember that you need to play the stuff you are currently working on as well as the simpler stuff. Play your newest stuff near the end so that you are fully warmed up before you do so. Your performances in public will basically be your modified sight reading pieces, plus your new work. Another phenomenon that happens when you're beginning harp is that you can play your stuff quite well in the location that you normally practice. But when you move your harp to a different location, even if it's simply across the room from your normal location, that everything looks different and weird, and you can have issues with this. Forcing yourself to play in public all the time will eradicate this problem for you. A couple of other quick tips. You will probably find that when you're attempting to play the really high notes on your harp, the ones with the tiny little strings that you aren't able to get much volume out of the notes, it often feels like you're literally attempting to pull the tiny strings right out of the harp in your attempt to get some volume out of them. A solution to this issue for me has come in the form of growing my right thumb nail out a bit and plucking the tiny high harp strings with the nail of my right thumb as required. This will produce a really clear ringing tone that is considerably louder than the tone produced by the pad of your fingers. Another quick tip is that when you have a piece of music that is 3 pages long, you can eliminate the page turn by photocopying either the first or last page of the piece and then scotch taping it with the photocopied page to the edge of the appropriate page in your book. Do this so that the photocopied page will easily fold itself back into your book. The end result is a page that will fold out so that you do not have a page turn. Now, it's my ultimate goal for each and every one of you to succeed with your harp lessons and to move on to the point that pleases you the most. As I think of new tips, I'll make new videos on this material and will post them in my first year harp lessons playlist so that you can find them easier. Well, that's it for now. I have a great many videos now on many different topics, so I've decided to make several different video playlists so that it's easier to find the videos of greatest interest. So please check out my playlist page. Well, that's it for now. To stay up to date with my latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this free YouTube channel by clicking the red subscribe button right below this video. Take care.